In this life we are confronted with forces beyond our control, yet it is within our power to master the only thing truly ours, ourselves. The pursuit of self-mastery is not a fleeting ambition or a temporary endeavor, but a lifelong commitment to growth, discipline, and virtue. To master oneself is to rise above the chaos of the world, to face challenges not with fear or frustration, but with composure and resolve. It is a path laid before us by the Stoic sages, a path that demands relentless practice, unwavering discipline, and a deep understanding of what truly matters. In this journey, we must learn to cultivate inner peace, to govern our desires, to embrace hardship with gratitude, and to act with wisdom. Through the teachings of Stoicism, we shall come to understand that self-mastery is not an end, but a continuous process and unfolding of our greatest potential, grounded in virtue and tempered by reason. The power of control, what you can and cannot change. To begin our journey towards self-mastery, we must first recognize the one undeniable truth that forms the very foundation of Stoic philosophy: the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. This is not a mere intellectual exercise, nor a trivial distinction. It is the key to a life of peace, strength, and true freedom. We often spend our days grappling with the external, seeking to control forces, people, and circumstances that lie beyond our reach. Yet this struggle is futile. It is the source of much of our frustration, our stress, and our suffering. The Stoics teach us to focus our energy on that which we can govern: our thoughts, our actions, our judgments, and our responses. Everything else, the outcomes, the opinions of others, the inevitable uncertainties of life, lies outside the realm of our influence. The task before us then is simple, though not always easy: to relinquish our attachment to things we cannot control, and to take full responsibility for us on the things we can. This distinction begins with the understanding that the external world will unfold as it will, and it is not our duty to bend it to our will. Nature has its course and fate has its hand. We cannot control the weather, the actions of others, or the unpredictable twists of life. No matter how much we desire a different outcome, no matter how strongly we wish for circumstances to change, the world remains indifferent to our desires. This is a bitter pill to swallow for many, for we are conditioned to believe that through sheer willpower or effort, we can manipulate the world around us. Yet the Stoics remind us that such efforts are not only futile but are the root cause of our discontent. Instead, they call upon us to shift our focus inward. The true realm of mastery lies in our ability to govern ourselves, to decide how we will respond to whatever life may present. The events of our lives may be beyond our control, but our reactions to them are ours alone. How we choose to interpret a situation, how we decide to act in the face of adversity, these are the true measures of our power. The Stoics understood that suffering arises not from the events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. A misfortune becomes a tragedy only when we assign it meaning that disturbs our peace. A hardship becomes unbearable only when we allow it to weaken our resolve. In the face of difficulty, we must ask ourselves, what can I control in this moment? We can control our thoughts, our attitude, and our actions. If we are faced with loss, we can control how we respond, not by denying our feelings, but by choosing not to be consumed by them. If we face criticism, we can control our response not by silencing our voice, but by remaining true to our purpose and principles. If we encounter failure, we can control our determination not by surrendering to despair, but by learning from the experience and continuing to pursue our path with even greater resolve. The Stoics teach us that to focus on the uncontrollable is to waste our energy. When we direct our attention to things we cannot change, we give away our power. This is not to say that we must become passive, indifferent, or complacent in the face of injustice or hardship. No, the Stoic does not seek to escape the world, but rather to engage with it from a position of strength and clarity. We are called to act where we can, to pursue excellence and virtue, and to influence the world through our character, but we must never become attached to the outcomes. Success and failure, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, these are not the true measures of a life well true. What matters is how we respond, how we choose to face the inevitable uncertainties and challenges that arise. To cultivate this power of control, we must practice self-awareness. We must regularly ask ourselves, what is in my power? When we feel anger rising in response to an injustice, we must pause and recognize that our anger is within our control, but the injustice itself is not. When we feel overwhelmed by the weight of a difficult task, we must remember that our ability to persevere is within our control, but the challenges we face are part of life's natural order. In every situation, we must remind ourselves that the power lies within us, not in the world around us. The journey to self-mastery requires a commitment to this understanding. We must cultivate the wisdom to know what to change and the strength to accept what cannot be changed. The more we focus on our own actions and responses, the less we will be buffeted by the storms of life. The less we seek to control the uncontrollable, the more we will discover the peace that comes from knowing that we are masters of ourselves. In the practice of Stoicism, this understanding becomes a daily discipline. It is not enough to intellectually grasp this distinction, we must live it. We must remind ourselves each day that the key to a life of tranquility lies not in our attempts to control the external world, but in our ability to govern our inner world. In the moments of hardship, when emotions rise and external circumstances threaten to shake our peace, we must return to this simple truth: I cannot control this, but I can control how I respond. I can control how I choose to view this situation. I can control the virtue I choose to embody in this moment. By cultivating this mindset, we free ourselves from the chains of anxiety, frustration, and disappointment. We begin to live with a sense of purpose and clarity, no longer at the mercy of external forces, but firmly anchored in the power of our own will. Through this understanding, we unlock the potential for true self-mastery, for in the end, the only thing that ever truly belongs to us is our own response to the world. Embracing adversity, turning challenges into opportunities. In the pursuit of self-mastery, we must confront a profound truth: life will present us with adversity. No one is exempt from the trials, difficulties, and hardships that are part of the human experience. The Stoic sage does not seek to avoid adversity, nor does he see it as something to be feared. Instead, the Stoic embraces adversity, recognizing it not as an obstacle to his progress, but as an opportunity for growth. The true strength of a person is not revealed in times of ease, but in the way they respond to difficulty, to suffering, and to the challenges that inevitably arise. Adversity, in its many forms, is a constant companion in life. It may come in the form of personal loss, failure, betrayal, illness, or any number of misfortunes. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control when or how these adversities will strike, but we can control our response to them. And this response, this ability to turn challenges into opportunities, is what separates the wise from the foolish, the strong from the weak, and the master of himself from the one who is at the mercy of the world. First, we must recognize that adversity is an inescapable part of life. To fight against it, to resist it, or to wish that it would not come, is to engage in an exercise of futility. It is like standing before a storm and demanding that it cease. Nature does not bend to our desires. Similarly, the trials of life will not cease simply because we wish for them to do so. To truly embrace adversity, we must first accept its presence in our lives. We must stop viewing hardship as something that should be avoided or feared, and instead view it as a teacher, as a force that can sharpen us, strengthen us, and prepare us for the greater challenges ahead. The Stoics understood that adversity is a catalyst for growth. Just as a sculptor chisels away at a block of marble to reveal the form within, so too does adversity shape our character. It is through the fires of hardship that we forge the virtues of resilience, courage, patience, and wisdom. Without difficulty, there can be no growth. Without challenge, there can be no strength. The wise man does not pray for an easy life, but for the strength to endure the hardships that come his way. The philosopher Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Just as the body becomes stronger through resistance and struggle, so too does the mind and spirit grow stronger when tested by adversity. Moreover, adversity is an opportunity to practice virtue. The Stoic does not simply endure hardship passively, he embraces it as an opportunity to demonstrate the qualities that define a virtuous life. When faced with adversity, the Stoic is called to act with wisdom, to respond with courage, and to maintain his integrity in the face of suffering. It is in these moments that the Stoic's true character is revealed. How do you respond when you face a setback? Do you give in to anger, frustration, or despair? Or do you meet the challenge with calm, with reason, and with a resolve to carry on? In the midst of adversity, the Stoic reminds himself that the external circumstances do not define him. It is his response that matters. When facing personal loss, the Stoic does not allow grief to consume him, for he understands that attachment to things outside his control only leads to suffering. When confronted with failure, the Stoic does not surrender to defeat, but uses the experience as a lesson, a stepping stone toward greater wisdom. When faced with criticism or injustice, the Stoic does not lash out, but responds with equanimity, refusing to let the opinions of others disturb his peace. The Stoic's response to adversity is rooted in the understanding that every challenge is an opportunity to practice virtue. It is not in avoiding hardship, but in confronting it with grace that we develop the qualities that lead to self-mastery. When we encounter adversity, we are given the chance to demonstrate our capacity for patience, for perseverance, and for resilience. Every challenge is an invitation to show the world the strength of our character, to prove that we are not victims of our circumstances, but masters of our responses. Yet it is not only in the face of great adversity that the Stoic sees opportunity. Even in the small difficulties of daily life, there is room for growth. Every minor frustration, every inconvenience, every challenge that arises in the course of our day-to-day existence is an opportunity to practice self-control, to cultivate a sense of gratitude, and to strengthen our resolve. Whether we are stuck in traffic, dealing with a difficult colleague, or managing a minor setback, these small adversities provide the perfect training ground for developing the virtues that will serve us in more significant challenges. The Stoic does not wait for a great crisis to test his character. He practices in the small things, so that when the greater trials come, he is already prepared. One of the most powerful tools the Stoic uses in the face of adversity is the practice of reframing. This involves changing our perspective on a given situation, not by denying the difficulty, but by seeing it from a different angle. When faced with a challenge, the Stoic does not view it as something to be avoided, but as an opportunity to exercise strength, wisdom, and virtue. What others may see as a misfortune, the Stoic sees as a chance to grow. What others may see as a setback, the Stoic sees as a stepping stone toward greater mastery. This shift in perspective allows the Stoic to remain calm, composed, and focused, even in the face of difficulty. It allows him to extract value from the adversity he faces, turning it into an opportunity for self-improvement. In embracing adversity, we must also cultivate the practice of gratitude. It may seem counterintuitive to be grateful in the midst of hardship, but the Stoics understood that gratitude is a powerful tool for transforming our experience of difficulty. By recognizing that every challenge is an opportunity for growth, we can be thankful for the lessons adversity brings. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we have lost to what we have gained, from what is wrong to what is right. It reminds us that even in suffering, there is value, and that each moment, no matter how difficult, contributes to our development as individuals. In conclusion, adversity is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced. It is through adversity that we are tested, strengthened, and shaped into the individuals we are meant to become. The Stoic teaches us that every challenge, no matter how great or small, is an opportunity for growth. It is in adversity that we discover who we truly are, and it is in overcoming adversity that we achieve self-mastery. The path to mastery is not one of ease, but one of struggle, resilience, and transformation. Through adversity, we are forged into the best versions of ourselves, and it is through adversity that we come to understand the true nature of strength, courage, and wisdom. The role of rationality in achieving mastery. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the unwavering belief in the power of reason. It is through our rational mind that we are able to rise above the chaos of our emotions, impulses, and external circumstances. The Stoic path to self-mastery is grounded in the cultivation of rationality, for it is reason that allows us to align our actions with virtue, to make wise decisions, and to maintain tranquility in the face of adversity. Without reason, we are subject to the whims of our emotions and the unpredictability of the world. But with reason, we can gain control over ourselves, act in accordance with nature, and live a life of integrity and purpose. Rationality, in the Stoic sense, is not merely the ability to think clearly or logically. It is the ability to discern what is truly important, to see things as they are, and to act in accordance with wisdom. It is the capacity to recognize what is within our control and what is not, to make choices based on virtue rather than impulse, and to remain steadfast in our pursuit of what is right. Rationality is the tool by which we govern our emotions, our desires, and our actions, and it is through the application of reason that we are able to master ourselves. One of the most powerful aspects of rationality is its ability to bring us back to the present moment. So often we are swept away by the tides of our emotions, consumed by fear, anger, desire, or worry about the future. But reason allows us to step back, to observe our thoughts and emotions from a place of detachment, and to choose how we will respond. The Stoics teach us that it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. By using our rational mind to examine our thoughts, we can determine whether they are grounded in reality or driven by a reason. We can then decide to reject those thoughts that do not serve our peace of mind and replace them with thoughts that are aligned with virtue, wisdom, and truth. This practice of rational inquiry is essential in moments of difficulty. When we are confronted with a challenge, it is easy to be overwhelmed by our emotions, whether it is frustration at an injustice, fear in the face of the unknown, or anger at someone who has wronged us. In these moments, our rational mind must take the lead. We must remind ourselves that our emotions are not facts, and that we have the power to choose our response. By stepping back from the situation and using reason to assess the reality of the circumstances, we can regain control over our actions and emotions. Rationality also enables us to distinguish between what is truly important and what is not. In a world that constantly pulls us in 1,000 directions, it is easy to become distracted by trivial concerns, by the pursuit of fleeting pleasures, the desire for approval, or the fear of what others may think. The Stoic sage, however, understands that these external factors are of no true consequence. What matters is our own character, our ability to live in accordance with virtue, and our commitment to the pursuit of wisdom. Rationality allows us to cut through the noise of the world and focus on what truly matters. It allows us to see that our happiness and peace are not dependent on external circumstances, but on our internal state of mind. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is that we should not be governed by our passions. Our passions, those intense, irrational emotions that often lead us astray, are the product of unchecked desires and misaligned judgments. They are fleeting and unreliable, and when we act in accordance with them, we often find ourselves caught in cycles of frustration and suffering. Reason, on the other hand, is steady and reliable. It does not promise to remove the difficulties of life, but it does provide us with the tools to face them with clarity, composure, and wisdom. The rational mind sees the bigger picture. It understands that fleeting pleasures are of little value in comparison to the cultivation of virtue and inner peace. To develop rationality, we must first practice self-reflection. Each day we must examine our thoughts and actions, asking ourselves whether they are aligned with our values and principles. When we feel anger or fear rising within us, we must pause and ask why. Are these emotions based on rational judgments, or are they the result of irrational beliefs and assumptions? Are we allowing ourselves to be carried away by our impulses, or are we choosing to respond with wisdom and composure? Through this process of self-examination, we strengthen our capacity for rational thought and become more adept at recognizing when our emotions are leading us astray. Rationality also requires us to cultivate a deep understanding of the nature of things. The Stoics taught that by studying the world around us, we can gain insight into how to live in harmony with it. This is not an abstract exercise, but a practical one. By studying human nature, by observing the patterns of the world, and by understanding the laws of cause and effect, we can better navigate the challenges that arise in our lives. Rationality is not simply an intellectual pursuit. It is a way of engaging with the world, a way of living that is grounded in truth and wisdom. As we develop rationality, we begin to see the world through a different lens. We come to understand that many of the things we once thought were essential to our happiness, wealth, status, approval are in fact distractions, empty pursuits that lead us away from the true source of peace. We come to recognize that the only thing that truly belongs to us is our own mind and our ability to choose how we respond to the world. The Stoic sage does not seek to control the external world, but rather to master his own mind, to live in accordance with reason, and to act with virtue. In times of crisis, rationality becomes our greatest ally. When the world around us is in turmoil, when we are faced with personal loss, or when we feel overwhelmed by the uncertainty of life, it is reason that allows us to stay grounded. In the face of chaos, the Stoic does not panic or succumb to despair, but instead relies on his rational mind to navigate the storm. He understands that nothing is truly permanent, that all things pass, and that his happiness is not dependent on the fleeting circumstances of the world. By practicing rationality, we cultivate a calm and steady mind, one that is capable of facing the greatest challenges with equanimity and resolve. In conclusion, rationality is the cornerstone of self-mastery. It is through reason that we are able to navigate the challenges of life with clarity and wisdom, to rise above the chaos of our emotions, and to live in accordance with virtue. Rationality allows us to discern what is truly important, to respond to adversity with composure, and to cultivate a life of inner peace. The path to self-mastery is not one of emotion-driven impulses or the pursuit of external validation, but one of clear, rational thought and deliberate action. It is through the application of reason that we become the masters of our own lives, and it is through reason that we achieve the greatest freedom, the freedom to live in accordance with our highest ideals. The pursuit of virtue, the only true good. At the core of Stoic philosophy is the unwavering belief that virtue is the only true good. Everything else, wealth, status, pleasure, and even health, are indifferent. They are neither good nor bad in themselves, but only become valuable insofar as they align with the pursuit of virtue. For the Stoic, the goal of life is not the accumulation of external rewards or the avoidance of discomfort, but the cultivation of virtue. It is through virtue that we achieve true happiness, peace, and fulfillment, for it is virtue that shapes our character, governs our actions, and ultimately defines the quality of our lives. What then is virtue? In Stoic thought, virtue consists of four cardinal qualities: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These virtues form the foundation of a good life, guiding our thoughts, our decisions, and our behavior. Wisdom allows us to understand the world as it is, to recognize what is within our control and what is not, and to make decisions that align with nature and reason. Courage gives us the strength to face adversity, to stand firm in our principles, and to act with integrity even when it is difficult. Justice compels us to treat others with fairness and respect, to seek the common good, and to act in accordance with moral principles. Temperance teaches us to master our desires, to live with moderation, and to refrain from excessive indulgence in pleasure or material things. The Stoic recognizes that these virtues are not mere theoretical ideals, but practical qualities that must be cultivated through daily action. Virtue is not something we possess as a gift or inheritance, it is something we must actively develop and practice throughout our lives. It is a lifelong journey, one that requires continuous self-examination, commitment, and discipline. Each day we are faced with choices that test our virtue, and it is through these choices that we either strengthen or weaken our character. To live virtuously is to make decisions that are aligned with our highest values, regardless of the external circumstances or the opinions of others. In the pursuit of virtue, we must first and foremost recognize that it is within our power to cultivate these qualities. Unlike external circumstances which are beyond our control, virtue is something that we can develop through effort and intention. The Stoic does not see virtue as a static quality, but as a dynamic force that must be actively cultivated. Each day presents us with opportunities to practice wisdom, to act with courage, to serve justice, and to exercise temperance. The more we practice these virtues, the more they become ingrained in our character until they form the foundation of who we are. In a world that often values wealth, fame, and pleasure above all else, the Stoic does not seek these fleeting and unreliable goods. Instead, he recognizes that true fulfillment comes not from the accumulation of material wealth or the pursuit of superficial desires, but from the cultivation of virtue. The Stoic understands that external circumstances are beyond his control, and that the pursuit of fame or fortune is a path that leads only to anxiety and disappointment. True contentment comes not from what we possess, but from who we are and how we live. The Stoic sage is rich not in possessions, but in character. He seeks to embody the virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, knowing that in doing so he aligns himself with the natural order of the world and the highest ideals of human flourishing. The pursuit of virtue requires a constant commitment to self-improvement. It is not enough to simply recognize the virtues, we must actively strive to embody them in our daily lives. This requires self-awareness and reflection. Each day we must ask ourselves, how have I demonstrated wisdom today? Have I acted with courage in the face of fear or difficulty? Have I treated others with justice and fairness? Have I practiced temperance in my desires and actions? The Stoic recognizes that these questions are not rhetorical, they are an invitation to look inward, to examine our actions, and to take responsibility for our behavior. Through this daily practice, we strengthen our capacity for virtue and deepen our understanding of what it means to live a good life. At the heart of Stoic virtue is the idea of living in accordance with nature. The Stoic understands that the universe operates according to rational principles, and that human beings are part of that natural order. To live virtuously is to align ourselves with this natural order, to live in harmony with the laws of nature and reason. In doing so, we cultivate not only our individual well-being, but also contribute to the greater good of humanity. The Stoic sage does not live solely for himself, but for the benefit of all, recognizing that the pursuit of virtue benefits not only the individual but society as a whole. In this way, the Stoic embodies the principle of justice, recognizing that our actions have an impact on others and that we are called to act in a way that promotes the common good. The pursuit of virtue also requires us to confront our own flaws and weaknesses. The Stoic is not blind to his own imperfections, but instead approaches them with humility and a commitment to self-improvement. He understands that no one is perfect, and that the path to virtue is a continual process of growth and development. When we fall short, the Stoic does not dwell in self-pity or shame, but acknowledges his mistakes and uses them as opportunities for learning. Each failure is a lesson, each shortcoming an opportunity to strengthen our character. Through this process of continual self-reflection and growth, we move ever closer to the ideal of the virtuous life. The Stoic sage is not concerned with the opinions of others, for he understands that true virtue does not depend on external validation. He does not seek the approval or praise of others, nor does he fear their criticism or judgment. His focus is not on the external rewards or accolades that may come from living virtuously, but on the intrinsic value of virtue itself. The Stoic does not act in order to be seen or admired, but because it is the right thing to do. In this way, the pursuit of virtue becomes its own reward, for the Stoic finds fulfillment not in the applause of others, but in the integrity of his own actions and the alignment of his life with the highest moral principles. Ultimately, the Stoic teaches us that virtue is the only true good, and that the pursuit of virtue is the highest goal of human life. All other goods are secondary, fleeting, and unreliable. Wealth, fame, pleasure, these are not inherently bad, but they are indifferent. They neither add to nor take away from our true happiness. Only virtue has the power to bring lasting contentment, for only virtue shapes our character and guides our actions in accordance with what is truly good. In the pursuit of virtue, we discover our true selves, and in living virtuously, we achieve the highest form of fulfillment and peace. The Stoic sage lives not for the transient rewards of the world, but for the enduring good of virtue, and in doing so he achieves the greatest freedom from the tyranny of external circumstances and the chaos of unchecked desires. The pursuit of virtue is not only the path to self-mastery, but the path to a life of true excellence, purpose, and meaning. Mastering the mind, the key to inner freedom. The Stoics understood that the key to true freedom is not found in the external world, but within the mind. Our thoughts shape our reality. They determine how we perceive the world around us and how we respond to its challenges. By mastering our mind, we gain control over our emotions, our reactions, and ultimately our lives. The Stoic path to self-mastery is rooted in the cultivation of mental discipline, for it is through the mind that we can achieve the highest form of freedom. The mind is a powerful force. It can either enslave us or set us free. When we allow our thoughts to run unchecked, we are at the mercy of our impulses, fears, and anxieties. Our emotions take control, and we become reactive rather than proactive. We may become overwhelmed by the challenges of life, caught in cycles of negative thinking, self-doubt, or frustration. But when we take charge of our mind, we become the masters of our experience. We begin to see things as they truly are, free from the distortions of fear, anger, or desire. We become capable of responding to life's challenges with clarity, composure, and wisdom. One of the foundational teachings of Stoicism is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. We cannot control the external world, the actions of others, the events that unfold, or the circumstances we face. But we can control how we think about these things. We can control our judgments, our reactions, and our decisions. By training our minds to focus on what is within our control, we free ourselves from the anxiety and frustration that comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. This shift in perspective is the first step in mastering the mind. The Stoics teach us that we must approach our thoughts with vigilance. We must become aware of the judgments and beliefs that shape our perceptions of the world. Often our suffering is not caused by the events themselves, but by the way we interpret them. We may see a setback as a personal failure, a disagreement as an attack on our character, or a challenge as an insurmountable obstacle. But by examining these thoughts closely, we can see that they are not facts, they are merely judgments, often based on irrational beliefs or assumptions. Through the practice of rational inquiry, we can recognize these judgments for what they are and replace them with thoughts that are grounded in truth and reason. One of the most powerful tools in mastering the mind is the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness in the Stoic sense is the ability to observe our thoughts without becoming identified with them. It is the ability to step back from the constant stream of thoughts, to observe them objectively, and to choose whether or not to engage with them. When we practice mindfulness, we stop reacting impulsively to our emotions and instead create a space between stimulus and response. In this space, we have the power to choose how we will respond. We can decide whether to act with wisdom, whether to let go of a negative thought, or whether to reframe a challenging situation in a more constructive light. Mindfulness also allows us to cultivate gratitude, which is a powerful antidote to negative thinking. In moments of difficulty, it is easy to become consumed by frustration, resentment, or despair. But when we train our minds to focus on what we have rather than what we lack, we shift our perspective. Gratitude allows us to see the positive aspects of our lives, to appreciate the opportunities we have, and to recognize the good that exists even in the midst of hardship. By practicing gratitude, we train our minds to focus on what is valuable, and we free ourselves from the grip of negative thoughts. Another critical aspect of mastering the mind is the practice of self-discipline. The mind, left to its own devices, tends to wander. It chases after distractions, feeds on negative thoughts, and gives in to impulsive desires. But the Stoic understands that self-discipline is essential for achieving inner freedom. Through discipline, we can train our minds to focus on what is truly important, to reject distractions, and to align our thoughts and actions with our highest ideals. Self-discipline is not about suppressing our desires or emotions, it is about choosing not to be governed by them. It is about taking control of our mind, directing it toward what is virtuous, and refusing to allow it to be led astray by transient impulses. The Stoics also teach us the importance of detachment. In order to master the mind, we must learn to detach ourselves from our thoughts, emotions, and desires. This does not mean suppressing them or denying their existence. It means recognizing that they do not define us. Our thoughts and emotions are not who we are, they are temporary states that come and go. We must learn to observe them without becoming attached to them. When we detach from our thoughts and emotions, we free ourselves from their influence. We are no longer slaves to our desires or prisoners of our fears. Instead, we become the impartial observers of our inner world, capable of responding with wisdom and composure. One of the most effective ways to cultivate mental discipline is through the practice of journaling. The Stoics were known for their habit of writing down their thoughts and reflections, and this practice can be incredibly valuable for anyone seeking to master the mind. Journaling allows us to examine our thoughts more closely, to identify patterns of negative thinking, and to challenge our assumptions. It provides an opportunity for self-reflection and self-correction. By writing down our thoughts, we externalize them, which allows us to gain perspective and clarity. Journaling is also a way to track our progress, to measure how well we are mastering our minds, and to reinforce our commitment to self-improvement. Through the practice of mental discipline, we come to understand that our mind is not a passive observer of life, it is an active participant in shaping our experience. Our thoughts, beliefs, and judgments are the lenses through which we see the world. By mastering the mind, we gain the power to see things as they truly are, without the distortion of irrational beliefs or unchecked emotions. We gain the power to choose our responses, to act with wisdom and virtue, and to live a life of inner freedom. Mastering the mind does not mean eliminating all negative thoughts or emotions. It means recognizing them for what they are and choosing not to be ruled by them. It means cultivating the strength and clarity to respond to life's challenges with composure, to maintain a sense of inner peace even in the face of adversity. The mind, when mastered, becomes a source of power and freedom. It becomes a tool that we can use to shape our lives in accordance with virtue and wisdom, and it allows us to navigate the complexities of life with grace and resilience. In conclusion, the mastery of the mind is the key to achieving inner freedom. Through mindfulness, self-discipline, detachment, and rational inquiry, we gain control over our thoughts and emotions, and we become the masters of our own experience. The Stoic teaches us that true freedom is not the absence of external constraints, but the ability to control our internal state. By mastering our minds, we achieve the highest form of self-mastery, and we become capable of living a life of purpose, virtue, and peace. Embracing adversity, the path to strength and resilience. In the philosophy of Stoicism, adversity is not something to be feared or avoided, but rather something to be embraced as an essential part of the human experience. For the Stoic, challenges, hardship and suffering are not obstacles to happiness, but opportunities for growth and self-improvement. The Stoic approach to adversity is grounded in the belief that we can develop strength, resilience and wisdom through our response to life's difficulties. It is not the external circumstances that define our experience, but our attitude toward them. By embracing adversity, we can transform it into a source of strength and a powerful tool for personal development. The Stoic teaches us that hardship is a natural part of life. No one is exempt from suffering, loss or struggle. The world is filled with uncertainty, change and hardship, and it is inevitable that we will face challenges along our journey. The key, however, is not to resist or complain about adversity, but to approach it with the understanding that it is an opportunity to practice virtue and strengthen our character. The Stoic accepts that suffering is part of the human condition, and rather than lamenting it, he seeks to use it as a means of refining his mind and spirit. One of the most important Stoic teachings regarding adversity is the idea of accepting what we cannot change. In life, there are many things that are beyond our control: other people's actions, the course of events, and the natural world. We cannot control these external circumstances, and to fight against them is a futile exercise that only leads to frustration and despair. Instead, the Stoic accepts the inevitability of suffering and focuses on how he can respond to it. He recognizes that while he cannot control the external world, he has full control over his internal state. His power lies not in avoiding adversity, but in choosing how he will react to it.